Pharaoh had just watched as the most ferocious storm in human history tore through Egypt at God's precise command. The devastation from this supergiant hail would have felt like a modern leader watching as his capital was bombed. The culprit was the granddaddy of clouds, the mighty cumulonimbus. They are typically formed when a mass of cold, dry air from the north moves south and is met with an equally large mass of warm, moist air moving northwards from the south. As the two masses meet, because the cold, dry air is heavier, it burrows underneath the warm, moist air, forcing this huge, wet air mass ever upwards. As it is forced to rise, this warm, moist air full of invisible water vapor cools and condenses, producing visible water droplets that build into towering cumulus clouds. These continue to grow higher and higher, but are checked when they reach what is called a temperature inversion. As you travel higher into the sky, the temperature gets colder. However, once you reach a certain height, the temperature starts to warm again. This is a temperature inversion which happens everywhere, with or without thunderclouds. It usually occurs very high up, at the height of cruising jet airliners, in extreme cases even as high as 50 to 60,000 feet. This means the rising cloud essentially hits a ceiling, so now with nowhere else to go, it spreads out horizontally, forming the famous anvil. Inside the tower of the cloud is a furious cauldron of wind, vertical air currents, frenzied rain as heavy as a waterfall, and frozen drops of rain. These frozen drops are forced upwards in high-speed jets of wind within the cloud. As they rise, they cool even further, each frozen drop growing until gravity overcomes them and they fall through the cloud. This is hail. If upcurrents are strong enough in big thunderclouds, before they fall out of the cloud onto the ground, they rise upwards again, caught in another violent vertical gust, growing in size once more. Really large hail forms through this up, growth, down elevator ride until hailstones the size of golf balls, even cricket balls, are formed. This is what fell on Egypt that late January day, in all likelihood as big as grapefruits. Incidentally, as hailstones knock against each other inside the cloud, they become electrically charged, which in turn charges the entire cloud. When a cloud can no longer hold the electrical charge that has built up, a lightning bolt is released. Meanwhile, charge builds up again. This is what is meant by, "There was hail with fire flashing continually in the midst of it," lightning as we would call it today. One region in South America receives the most lightning strikes in the world. Due to unique geographical conditions, Lake Maracaibo in Venezuela gets on average 150 storms per year. The most severe can see as many as 40,000 lightning strikes over a few hours in a single storm. Typically at its peak, there can be well over 10 flashes per second. Whilst all peoples on Earth would be used to lightning storms, much superstition was attached to them, often attributing lightning to the extreme anger of the gods. However, in the context of everything the Egyptians had been through up to this point, enormous fear of the Hebrew god is fully understandable, as inconceivably intense lightning flashed all around, doubtless at least as extreme than these Venezuelan storms, seeing in front of their eyes the most furious hailstorm in human history. So just as agricultural knowledge shows us that this plague of hail occurred in late January to early February, this corresponds perfectly with meteorology. Eastern Europe and the Near East would still be in the grip of winter. How feasible it would be for an exceptionally large and especially frigid air mass to form over Russia, Ukraine, and Turkey, then move south, to be met with an exceptionally warm and therefore extremely moist air mass from Sudan and Saudi Arabia that moves north. Where they collided, formed one of the most truly gargantuan supercell thunderstorms ever formed in history. How amazing that with our modern knowledge, it paints for us a basic picture of a Near East weather map for a few days in 1446 BC. Then Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron and said to them,
"This time I have sinned. The Lord is in the right, and I and my people are in the wrong. Pray to the Lord,"
said Pharaoh, sounding almost repentant, then flipping suddenly. Flush with his own authority, Pharaoh blurted,
"Enough of God's thunder and hail. I will let you go. You need stay no longer."
Moses said to him, "As soon as I have gone out of the city, I will stretch out my hands to the Lord. The thunder will cease, and there will be no more hail, so that you may know that the earth is the Lord's. As for you and your officials, I know that you do not yet fear the Lord God." Now the flax and the barley were ruined, for the barley was in the ear and the flax was in bud. But the wheat and the spelt were not ruined, for they are late in coming up. So Moses left Pharaoh, went out of the city, and stretched out his hands to the Lord. Then the thunder and the hail ceased, and the rain no longer poured down on the earth. Pharaoh was in a fix. More acutely than anyone, he could see the full effects of the economic devastation so far and the eye-watering cost of repairs. Worse, word would spread to neighboring kings that Egypt was damaged and therefore in a weakened state. He would have feared invasion. The debacle of the Hyksos rulers centuries before would still be fresh in the collective memory of Pharaoh and the nation. The normality of life was turned upside down with the death of their animals and all the upset to transport, food, animal products, and sacrificial worship. The rapid purchase of foreign livestock would have drained the now fragile Egyptian economy further, and the confiscation of some of the Israelite livestock by no means lessened the financial damage. As if this wasn't bad enough, Pharaoh would have had sleepless nights thinking about the dent on his kudos, perceived nationally by the people of Egypt. Surely he would not have been able to look some of his officials in the eye, acutely aware that to them, the grand imperial stature of Pharaoh that lived forever was indeed cracking in front of them and ready to topple. The Pharaoh god was looking very vulnerable indeed. But when Pharaoh saw that the rain and hail and the thunder had ceased, he sinned once more and hardened his heart, he and his officials. So the heart of Pharaoh was hardened, and he would not let the Israelites go, just as the Lord had spoken through Moses. Pharaoh states many times that he will let the Israelites go, but then breaks his promises. How often do we break out in an exuberant rash of piety, making promises to God, only for it to evaporate into a fog of forgetfulness? Without God's ongoing intervention in our lives and a resolute determination on our part to obey Him, keeping Him front and center of our minds, really in our hearts, we are actually not too different from Pharaoh, a frightening truth it may be. Then the Lord said to Moses,
"Go to Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart and the heart of his officials, in order that I may show the signs of mine among them, and that you may tell your children and grandchildren how I have made fools of the Egyptians and what signs I have done among them, so that you may know that I am the Lord."
So Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and said to him, "Thus says the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, how long will you refuse to humble yourself before me? Let my people go so that they may worship me. For if you refuse to let my people go, tomorrow I will bring locusts into your country. They shall cover the surface of the land so that no one will be able to see the land. They shall devour the last remnant left to you after the hail, and they shall devour every tree of yours that grows in the field. They shall fill your houses and the houses of all your officials and all of the Egyptians, something that neither your parents nor your grandparents have seen, from the day they came on earth to this day." Then he turned and went out from Pharaoh. It is now reaching boiling point inside the court of Pharaoh. Moses and Aaron are seen disappearing into the distance, whilst Pharaoh stands watching them silent and impotent. Egypt is yet again looking down the barrel of a loaded gun. The court officials are not equivocating. They know that the God of the Hebrews is very real, that each plague is worse than the one before, and in fact, this God is being very fair with them. Once again, they have been given plenty of warning. At least they have joined the dots. Deeply frustrated that their ruler has not, they simply cannot stay silent. Pharaoh's officials said to him,
"How long shall this fellow be a snare to us? Let the people go, so that they may worship the Lord their God. Do you not yet understand that Egypt is ruined?"
Pharaoh feels the weight of pressure upon him, and although turning this way and that, remains a rabbit caught in the headlights. After a pregnant pause, Pharaoh snaps out of his silence, sending palace guards to pursue Moses and Aaron, ordering them to return. So Moses and Aaron were brought back to Pharaoh, and he said to them,
Go, worship the Lord your God. But which ones are to go?
Moses said, "We will go with our young and our old. We will go with our sons and daughters, and with our flocks and herds, because we have the Lord's festival to celebrate." Pharaoh said to them,
The Lord indeed will be with you, if I ever let your little ones go with you. Plainly, you have some evil purpose in mind. No, never. Your men may go and worship the Lord, for that is what you are asking.
and they were driven out from Pharaoh's presence. Pharaoh's stubborn pride and cynicism has now given way to full-blown paranoia, even distorting Moses' words to fit his own inflexible agenda and mistakenly convincing himself of its truth. He knows that he has no exit options, or certainly none that he is prepared to contemplate. He is now a cat on a hot tin roof. Every way he turns is only pain, and a growing sense of panic cannot be stifled. Everything he knows is being challenged and shaken to its core. He could surrender at any point, but he is not prepared to pay the price. He would know that the nation is now standing on the edge of a cliff. The threatened invasion of locusts can only mean one thing. Egypt is about to enter a period of mass starvation. It is worth spending a few moments examining the mind of a tyrant. It is hard for most of us to understand why someone like Pharaoh could be so amazingly obstinate and supremely stubborn. Surely he was not without the intelligence to see the futility of fighting against God, his demise and that of his nation being a foregone conclusion. But to understand the mind of Pharaoh is to grapple with the belligerence of an absolute dictatorship. His control of the government is based in his belief of a divine right to govern. He is infallible. In his own eyes and that of the nation, he is incapable of making a wrong decision. Everything he does is right all of the time, even when it is plainly wrong. Worse, the government apparatus is structured to carry out every whim of the pharaoh's diktats immediately. There is no scrum of reporters ready to hurl uncomfortable questions and then disseminate his comments and their opinions to the nation. There is no structure to hold him accountable. He is the law, and only he can add and subtract to it whenever he likes. There is no higher court to rule his commands unconstitutional or illegal. His words are the very words of God. To challenge him is to challenge the very edifice of the entire worship system, and thus making oneself a traitor to the state. Essentially, anathema. So with ancient Egypt having such a national tyrannical structure, any reversal of policy would therefore be seen as far worse than weakness. For Pharaoh to relinquish to a more powerful god would be to deny himself. Religious apostasy, an inconceivable proposition akin to suicide, because at the very core of Pharaoh was self. With self enthroned with all its trappings, there was no room for the one true God and his ways. The nation's very reason for existence was on the line if he caved in. Even if, in periods of quiet, his conscience was pricked and regrets surfaced, there was no golden bridge of retreat. Therefore, Pharaoh had to continue even when it was clear that he and his hubristic state apparatus had been captured in the gravity well of the immeasurably powerful, one true God. It was he who was ensuring that Pharaoh's escape was impossible just as surely as an object in space captured by the inescapable gravity of a black hole. There is incidentally in the modern day one country that is the same: North Korea.